Okay. So, meal planning. This is a subject that I think is really important to dive into because a few reasons. One, it's incredibly important. Like, I really believe that a big part of the way we set ourselves up for success, one of the ways we set ourselves up for success, is having a plan, right? Being prepared, having a plan about what we're going to do when we're challenged, what we're going to do when we feel ourselves falling into old habits. And one of the aspects of our plan that I think is very useful is a meal plan, planning our meals ahead of time. And I'll get into in a minute why, from a brain perspective, it's so important. But the second reason I think it's important that we talk about this is because it's one of those things that I get questions about all the time, because so many of us know how important it is, and yet we struggle to do it consistently, right? We know it's not that much of a sell to explain to people, get people to believe that meal planning is important. We've heard about it. We can see the benefits, and yet sometimes we really struggle to do it consistently. So let's talk about meal planning today. So again, as I just mentioned, it's important to have a plan. Meal planning, I think, is just one aspect of a bigger plan for how you're going to deal with food in general, but planning your meals is an important piece of that puzzle. Having a plan, again, for what you're going to eat and when, as much as you can, and also things like what you're going to do when you feel triggered, when you feel challenged, when you feel yourself falling into those old habits, when you're at the restaurant, when it's nighttime and you're stressed, when your husband comes home with pizza, when you're at the party and all your favorite desserts are there, when you're on vacation in front of the buffet. Like, this is life. These things are going to keep happening. You are not going to go live in a Zen monastery, I'm guessing, an ashram. You're going to live in your life. And so all of these triggers are going to come up for these old habits. So it's important that you create in advance a plan for what you're going to do when you encounter those triggers. We're not going to get into all of that today, but that is the bigger picture of what I mean by the importance of having a plan in terms of breaking these old habit loops. Meal planning is one aspect of that. Meal planning and sitting down and deciding what you're going to eat and when, maybe for the day ahead, for the week ahead, is really useful because we know that when we are in the moment, when it is dinner time and you've just worked all day and you're exhausted, that is not when we are at our best in terms of decision-making power. And this is because, I won't go into all the neuroscience of it right now, but basically you have a finite amount of decision-making power on any given day, right? It's like, I always think of it's like a bank account. And you are allotted your amount of decision-making power in the morning. And every time you make a decision throughout the day, you make a little withdrawal from that account. And it's not just about food that is making those withdrawals, right? It's like deciding whether or not to tell your boss what you really think, or, deciding if you're going to go through the yellow light, and a million other decisions that you make during a day. Each one of those is a little withdrawal from your willpower bank account, because willpower is just decision-making power. Same thing, right? So that means that you have been withdrawing all day long, making decisions. And so when you get to the end of the day, you could have an empty bank account. And then there you are in that state, trying to make a good choice about what to have for dinner, or whether or not to grab the chips and hit the couch once everyone's in bed. And this is why more often than not, we end up making poor decisions in the evening. So a meal plan can really help with that, because even if you just plan your dinners, often I just plan my dinners for the week, because I feel like, I pretty much eat the same thing for breakfast and lunch almost every day. But I feel like dinners are where it gets trickier, right? Again, I'm tired after the day. Unlike breakfast and lunch, which I just cook for myself, dinners, I have to take into account my kids. So there's more factors at play. And also I'm more at risk of making not great choices because of the time of day. So this is why meal planning is so important. Do the work ahead of time and then just follow the plan. Don't expect your poor, depleted brain to make good decisions in the moment. Now, why don't we do it consistently, right? Again, I probably didn't just say anything that you probably I probably didn't have to sell you on the value of meal planning. But why don't we do it consistently? Why don't we stick with it? And I think that meal planning really speaks to your level of self-love, right? It's about making yourself a priority. And this is something that some of us are not so great at doing. So if you are the kind of person who gives and gives and gives and puts everybody else ahead of yourself and is always putting yourself at the bottom of the list, you're going to struggle with meal planning, because meal planning kind of requires you to make yourself a priority. So this can be part of the reason why we struggle, to stay consistent with meal planning, because, I'm just going to turn that off. It's really distracting. We don't make ourselves a priority. We put ourselves at the bottom of the list. And so meal planning just goes out the window. Even though we think it's a good idea and we can see the value, we don't care about ourselves. We don't make ourselves enough of a priority to put it to the top of the list. Also, there can be something going on where you have like a story, you have an old thought pattern about meal planning that tells you something like, it's really hard, or it's really complicated, or I don't think I'm doing it right. Or what if I make all the meal plan and then I fail at that, and then I'm going to feel horrible about that? Like sometimes we have these old stories and these old beliefs about things, and that story is really what's preventing us from using this tool or being consistent with it or making it a priority. So think about those reasons and get really curious and ask yourself why you're not making meal planning a priority. That is step one. Okay. Now let's talk about how we go and do it. So first of all, you got to figure out, again, what I just said about why you're not doing it now. Second, you got to flip the switch on that. If you do have an old story about meal planning that tells you that it's hard, that it's complicated, that it takes too long, that you have more important things to do, meaning you are at the bottom of the list. If you have any of those stories, I want you to start actively working on flipping the script on that, right? On what meal planning means. I think of meal planning and meal prep as self-care. I really do. I think that meal planning and prepping foods ahead of time, taking that time to set yourself up for success, taking that time to make yourself and your health and your body a priority, taking that time to sort of say to the universe that you value yourself, that your well-being, your health, you feeling good and being at your best is incredibly important, is vital, is valuable, right? That's what meal planning and meal prep really does. So start to think about it that way. Flip that script in your head about what you're making it mean. So it's not just another chore. It's not just something on your to-do list. It's not just something else you have to do, like, like taking the dog for a walk or whatever. It's really an act of self-care. So how do we do it? I'll tell you a little bit about how I do it. I would be fascinated to hear. I bet people have all different ways and strategies and things that work. And I think it would be great for you to share in the comments below what works for you, because it might be really helpful for somebody else. Again, I can share what I do, but I would love to hear what works for you, because not only am I interested, but again, it might be helpful for others. What I do, and again, I really just plan out my dinners ahead of time. So again, breakfast and lunch is kind of easy for us. I eat the same thing pretty much every day for breakfast and lunch, or one of two or three things. And I'm at home. I work from home, so it's easy for me. And my kids are teenagers, so they handle their own breakfast and lunch. But I do cook dinner for me and the kids. My husband does his own thing because we eat very differently. So this is what I do. On Sunday is the day we go grocery shopping. And so I sit down on Sunday morning and I make some time of it. Like I put on some music and I have my coffee or whatever. And I take out a piece of paper and I literally write down like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Write down the days of the week. Then I look at my calendar. I look at the kids' calendars. I see, what nights are going to be busy. When are we going to have not much time for dinner? What nights do we have nothing? And I have lots of time that I could make something a little more elaborate. And based on that, I plan out our meals. So say it's a night that it's going to be crazy and we only, maybe daughter has hockey practice at 7 and maybe I'm going to yoga at 6:30 and, we, maybe dinner is going to be kind of rushed. I'll plan something super easy. So like beans and rice and some cauliflower or something, right? Like something I can make in no time. And so I put that on. And then maybe there's a night where we have nothing. It's like totally wide open. So that's the night I'll pick to make something a little more elaborate. Like maybe I'll make like a stir fry with lots of veggies that I'm going to be cutting up in tofu and brown rice and stuff. Or maybe I'll make like a casserole of some kind. That's going to take a little longer. I'll plan those for those nights. And then later in the week, maybe we have another crazy busy night. That might be a leftovers night, right? So if I made a casserole on the wide open night, maybe the next busy night it's leftover night. So that's how I plan it out. And I literally pin that up on the bulletin board in our kitchen. So I don't get the mom, what's for dinner? Everybody can see. I don't have to, when I get through my day and I finally shut the laptop down and I'm exhausted, I don't have to then start thinking about what we're going to eat for dinner because I'm not going to make a good decision then. I just go look at the list and I just do what it tells me. And it makes my life so much easier. And so for me, setting aside that time on Sunday to make that plan and then do my grocery list based on that plan, right? It makes the grocery list a whole lot easier because I just look at the plan and I'm like, okay, what do I need for each of these meals? And then I grocery shop based on that. So I don't have to, I know I have everything in the house. I know what I'm making. It's easy. Okay. So think about that. And then the same kind of thing for meal prep, like for cooking, sometimes we want to batch cook or make certain elements ahead of time so that they're ready for us in the kitchen. I do that same thing on the weekend. So after we grocery shop on Sunday, I might wash a bunch of veggies and stuff, bunch of lettuce and stuff. So it's all chopped and clean and ready in the fridge. Makes that stir fry cooking a whole lot easier, or salads and stuff. I often also make like a soup, like one big sort of soup or a casserole, something that really lends itself to just then me eating it for lunch for the rest of the week. So like a chili or a soup or a casserole, I'll often do that. And then I usually make one sweet thing because that way we have something healthy and homemade that's like a sweet treat. So we're not, again, tempted to not make not great choices. So if I might make like sort of like I make like a granola cookie or something like that. Or I make sometimes brownies that are mostly made with like dates and raw cacao. So it's a sweet treat, but it's also way healthier than what you might be grabbing like at the convenience store or the, ice cream or whatever that you might be vulnerable to if you wait and try to make a decision later in the night. So those are kind of the three things I sort of meal prep ahead of time. I'll do, again, like wash some veggies, wash some lettuce, chop up veggies. So those are all in the fridge. I'll do like a soup or a casserole, and then I'll do like a sweet. And sometimes I'll also do like a big batch of brown rice. If I look at that meal plan and I see that like 2 of those nights we're going to have something with rice, I'll just make that on the Sunday and then it's done, right? It's just in the fridge. And again, I really think of this time of meal prep as self-care. I shoo everyone out of the kitchen. I put on a great playlist. I pour myself a cup of tea or maybe a glass of wine, and I really enjoy it. Like I dance to the music, I sing, I have all my stuff out on the counter, I chop, I cook, I bake. I really enjoy it, and I make it into a time of self-care for me. So it's not just another thing on my to-do list. It's not something I feel like I have to do. It's really a gift I'm giving to myself because I make it a priority. I make myself a priority. I make my energy, my health, the way I feel, how I'm showing up, I make that a priority. And I know that I need to nourish my body well in order to do that. So it becomes like a non-negotiable. And it really is like a non-negotiable. It's like showering or like I have to do laundry. Well, no, I have to meal prep. So if we're supposed to go to my in-laws for dinner, well, we can't go until 5 o'clock or something because I have to get my meal prep done. It becomes like a non-negotiable. It's just like saying I can't leave until 2 o'clock because I have to have a shower, right? Like these are non-negotiable things. You just do them. You make time for them. And it's the same thing with meal planning, meal prep. Okay. So I hope that's helpful. So think about, again, I'm sure you sort of see the value of these practices, but get really honest and curious about why you're not doing it now. Is it because you're not making yourself a priority? Is it because you have an old story about what meal prep or meal planning is, right? What have you made it mean in your mind? And that is your choice, right? So think about that. Then think about how you can flip the script on that, how you can start thinking about meal planning and meal prep as self-care, as self-love, as something fun, even, even if you don't love to cook, like you get some great music on, you get a nice glass of wine or a nice warm cup of tea, you're going to have a good time, right? It's like, it's time for you. And then look at how you can actually do the meal planning and meal prep. When are you going to do it? Like, again, I do it on Sunday. Make time for it. Bring your calendars. Look at all the things you've got going on for the week. Plan your meals accordingly. Create your grocery list based on those meals. And then you just have to follow the plan. It's so much easier, and it's such a great way to set yourself up for success. So I'd love to hear from you. Share in the comments below. What do you use? What are your favorite meal planning and meal prep techniques, strategies? What works? And what have you taken away from this that you're going to start implementing going forward? All right. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.